The long-term prospects of farming seem strong, but right now, producers, you need to be laser focused to get through these tough times and profit in the long run. NTV's Steve White catches up with a local ag economist.
And some people are thinking, gosh, is this like the 80s again? Or can we call this a crisis? But I think you kind of tempered that a little bit. Where are you coming from on the downturn that we're seeing these days?
We're in year 3 of a pretty substantial downturn in farm incomes, and so I think people are starting to get a little nervous. But what I was trying to point out is it is a lot different than the 80s. We still have pretty consistent demand from biofuels, and China is still buying a lot of our soybeans, and our exports remain strong. So we haven't seen demand completely fall away like it did in the 80s. And then there's not all the inflation and high interest rates that went along with that.
We hope that the cycle will change, but we just don't know when that's going to happen, I guess.
Right. It's always supply and demand, but right now demand is growing pretty slowly and pretty consistently. What can change right now is supply, and until we don't grow a truly excellent crop again, I think prices are going to be pretty low. So the supply side is what we really have to watch, I think. How much corn and soybeans do we plant this year, and then what are the yields?
And then in terms of takeaways of what do we do about all this, I think that point number 1 was just laser focus.
Cost control is the name of the game. Having low costs in farming is always a good strategy, and in this environment, it's a really good strategy. And then when you get a chance, when you understand your costs, then when you get a chance to market some grain at prices above those costs, I think it becomes a little easier because you know you're going to make a profit.
Certainly this time of year, a lot of guys, obviously they're making their budgets for the coming year, but you also made a good point that go back and look at what you spent the last year.
Right, we really got to go back and do that autopsy of how last year actually went compared to our budget, so we don't just, forecast the same mistake or be too optimistic. I think too often we don't really go back and take a really good look at how we actually performed, and then even as we go through the year, keep focus on, hey, where am I exceeding my budget, where am I doing a little better, where am I doing worse, so we can manage that closer. If you can't measure it, if you don't measure it, you won't manage it.
Well, you corn and soybean farmers out there, you can learn a little something from the wine industry. We'll have more on that later on in the show. Stick around for your forecast after the break.